There are 4 of us and 5 tubes, because the 5th one is for the cooler. And the cooler is the only thing on this river anybody planned for. Kayla's got it bungeed down with about 40 feet of yellow rope she took off our dad's boat trailer. She's been working on that knot since we got here. My sister does not tie a knot. She engineers one. Meanwhile, Trevor's already 2 beers in, standing knee-deep in the shallows, telling me the water's warm, which is a lie. It's the 2nd week of September, and that water is cold enough to make a grown man reconsider his choices. Marcus is trying to get his bad knee over the side of his tube without going ass over tea kettle in front of his wife. He's a big guy, 6'4", 300 and some, played nose tackle at a school nobody's heard of, and blew the knee out his junior year. He can't swim for shit either. He'll tell you that himself. He says a body his size is basically ballast. Trevor I've known since we were both 9 years old, and he threw a crabapple at the back of my head on the bus. He works at the tire shop on 3rd. He has been divorced twice before the age of 36, and he is the only person on this earth who came to my dad's funeral and got me to laugh at it. He is also, and I say this with love, the exact kind of man who reads a sign that says "do not" and hears a suggestion.
Get in the water, Shane. You've been standing on that rock for 10 minutes.
She's not wrong. Our dad went in March. Hart in his shop, somewhere between the drill press and the workbench, and my mother found him when he didn't come in for supper. Since then, I do a real good job of going to work and coming home and doing nothing else in between, and Kayla does a real good job of noticing, and this float trip is what she came up with. She printed a map. She made me look at it on her kitchen table with her finger on it like a woman planning an invasion. 11 miles, 4 or 5 hours, takeout at Miller's Landing, cars shuttled, sandwiches in the cooler, the good ones, from the deli counter and not the gas station. She's been trying to get me outdoors since the funeral. I said yes to shut her up. That's the honest version. I get in the water. The current takes us slow and easy, 3 miles an hour, maybe 4. The kind of speed where you don't feel like you're moving at all until you look at the bank. And it's the bank that's moving instead. Cottonwoods leaning over both sides with their roots hanging out of the cut banks like veins. Sandbars. Riffles where you scrape your ass on gravel and everybody laughs at whoever hits it first. Now and then, a cabin up on the high ground with a mowed path running down to a dock. The sun's out. Red-winged blackbirds are losing their minds in the cattails. The first hour of this is nice. Trevor spins himself in circles on purpose until he gets dizzy and has to lay his head back. Marcus falls asleep with a can balanced on his chest, rising and falling, not spilling a drop. Kayla floats along next to me with her feet hooked in my tube so we don't drift apart, and her head back and her eyes shut. She says my name once, just to check I'm still there. I say yeah. She says good. That's the whole conversation, and it's the best one I've had since March.
Hey, what happens if we just don't get out at the landing?
Kayla doesn't even open her eyes.
Then 2 miles later, you go over Bergstrom Falls and you die, Trevor.
How far is the drop?
60 feet.
That's not that far.
It's a 6-story building, man.
I'd live.
He wouldn't. I tell him he wouldn't. He says he would. Then we let it go, because it's a stupid argument about a thing that is not going to happen. Everybody gets out at the landing. There's a gravel ramp and a porta potty and a parking lot with a sign so faded you can only read half of it. And it's the single most obvious landmark on 11 miles of river. You could be blackout drunk and floating face down, and you'd still get out at Miller's Landing. I'd like to go back to that stretch of water. Right there, mile 2.5, my sister's feet hooked in my tube, and Trevor arguing about a waterfall. Because the first ones don't scare us. They can't. They're a family on a sandbar with a grill going. Dad in swim trunks with a spatula. Mom in a lawn chair with her legs crossed at the ankle. 2 kids, maybe 6 and 9, down in the shallows with a plastic bucket. A red cooler, a yellow dog sitting up straight. There's smoke coming off that grill, and it smells like hot dogs. That's how normal this is. I'm floating past thinking about their hot dogs and how I should have packed a grill. When we come, even with the sandbar, the mother raises her hand and waves. So we wave back. All 4 of us. No hesitation, no thought in it at all. You're on a river, somebody on the bank waves, you wave. There's not a person alive who wouldn't. Trevor hollers something about sharing the dogs. The dad lifts the spatula. Then the Ben takes them and they're gone. And that's the whole thing. 4 seconds of nothing. 20 minutes later, we come around another bend, and they're there again. Same grill, same red cooler, same lawn chair, same yellow dog sitting up straight with its ears forward. The mother waves. Nobody says a word about it except Kayla. And Kayla sits up in her tube like she got stuck with something.
That's them again.
That's who again?
The family. The grill people. That's the same family.
Babe, everybody out here's got a red cooler.
And that's it. That's how easy it is to get talked out of the thing that would have saved her. Marcus says everybody's got a red cooler, and Trevor says there's probably a whole campground back in those trees, and I say nothing at all, which is worse, because saying nothing is a vote. Kayla looks back over her shoulder at that sandbar for a long time. Then she lays back down and hooks her feet in my tube again and doesn't bring it up. I want that back. Of everything on this river, I want that minute back. We pass them a 3rd time before mile 4. By then I'm looking, whether I want to be or not. Same lawn chair, same angle to the sun, and the sun has moved since the first one, and the shadow of that chair has not. The 2 kids are in the shallows with the bucket, and the little one has his hand in the water, and the water isn't moving around his wrist the way water moves around a thing that's in it. The dog doesn't pant. It's 80 degrees on a sandbar with no shade, and a yellow dog is sitting up straight with its mouth closed. And the smoke off that grill goes straight up in a wind that's blowing hard enough to push my tube sideways. I count it. I don't say anything about it. I count it, and I file it, and I keep my mouth shut. Mile 4 is where the river slows down and goes wide, and the trees close in on both sides. And that's where the man starts walking. 50, 60 yards off, in the timber, and he's not hiding. That's the first thing my brain snags on. A guy hunting or scouting, or just walking his own property would be doing his own business. And this man is doing exactly one thing, and it's keeping pace with 4 people floating on rubber donuts. Not chasing, pacing. He is moving at precisely the speed of the Wanasa River. You know how fast that is? It's slower than a walk. It's slower than a person can comfortably move, stepping through blackberry brush and deadfall and whatever else is in there, without ever once looking down or slowing up or catching a foot on anything. Not looking at us either. Looking straight ahead, downstream, like the river's a road, and he's got somewhere to be. Trevor sees him and yells, "Hey." The man doesn't turn. Marcus sees him and gets quiet. And Marcus is not a quiet man. He walks with us for 1.5 miles. 1.5 miles is about 25 minutes. And 25 minutes is a long time to watch a stranger match your speed through thick timber without stumbling. We stop talking. We just watch him between the trunks, flickering in and out, in and out. Gray shirt, dark pants, arms swinging easy at his sides. When the river bends, he cuts the corner and comes back out ahead of us and waits for us to catch up. Not once does he look over. Kayla starts paddling. Little strokes with her hands, cupping the water, not saying anything about it, just putting us out toward the middle where the current's fastest. Then the river narrows and picks up into a riffle, and we get moving, real moving. And when I look back, he's stopped at the edge of the trees. He doesn't come out on the gravel. He stands right where the timber ends and lets us go.
That was somebody's crazy uncle. That's all that was. Every river's got one.
Then why'd he stop?
Property line.
Trevor, we've gone past like 9 of those grill families.
9?
I've been counting since you told me everybody's got a red cooler.
Nobody has an answer for that one. And here's the thing about being on a river. You cannot stop. There's no pulling over. There's no shoulder. The water goes one direction at 4 miles an hour, whether or not anybody's figured anything out. And every minute the 4 of us spend arguing is another 200 yards of the same trees. So Trevor does what Trevor's been doing since he was 17, which is decide the problem isn't real by refusing to look at it. He opens another beer. He announces he's gotta piss.
Do it in the water.
I'm not pissing in a river I've got my legs in.
You have pissed in every body of water in this county.
There's a sandbar right there. 60 seconds.
It's a good one. A big pale hook of sand on river, right with about 30 feet of open gravel between the water and the tree line. No brush, nothing in it, sun all over it. You could see a rabbit move on that sandbar from 200 yards. I look at it and my whole body says no, and I do not know why. And because I do not know why, I don't say anything. That's a thing I'm going to be carrying. Trevor rolls off his tube in about a foot of water and stands up and hands his beer to Marcus. And Marcus takes it, because what else do you do when a man hands you a beer?
Grab my tube. Don't let it go. I'm not chasing that thing.
Kayla grabs his tube. He wades up the shallows and out onto the wet sand, and the water peels off his shorts. And he's got that walk going, that drunk, determined walk where every step is a decision. He gets 10, 12 feet up onto the dry part, turns his back to us. Modest all of a sudden. We drift. Nobody thinks about that until they're in it. The current doesn't wait for a man to piss. We're already 40 yards downstream of him and going, and Kayla's got one hand on his tube and the other one paddling to hold us in place, and she can't because it's a river. Trevor's 100 feet back and getting smaller. Then the tree line moves. I'm going to tell this in the order I saw it and not one bit more, because I only got pieces. Something comes out of the cottonwoods behind him, and it comes out low. It's tall. That's the first thing that doesn't fit, because it comes out low, and it's still tall, meaning it's folded, meaning there's more joints in it than there ought to be. Gray, wet-looking, glistening in the sun, the way a thing looks when it's just come out of the water. Only it came out of the trees. It doesn't run at him. It doesn't need to. It puts one arm out and the arm keeps going. It reaches from the tree line to my friend without the body moving at all. And the elbow bends twice on the way. The hand takes Trevor by the back of the neck. He doesn't scream. He never gets to. He goes up. Not backward, up. Straight up off the sand with his feet still in the walking position and his hands coming up toward his own neck the way you do when something's got you there. He's 20 feet in the air, and his shadow is a little black line on all that pale sand. And I am watching my oldest friend hang in the sky over a sandbar in the middle of a Saturday afternoon. Then the trees take him. There's a crash, and the tops of 2 cottonwoods swing and go still. And that's all. It takes maybe 4 seconds. The sandbar's empty. The sun's still on it. His beer is in Marcus's hand.
Paddle, 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 paddle. Get to the middle, get to the middle.
We paddle. No plan, no words. Out to the deep line where the water's moving fastest. And Kayla's screaming his name behind us in a register I have never heard out of my sister and will hear for the rest of my life. Marcus has got the back of my tube in his fist and he's hauling me and Kayla into the current with him. And the cooler's dragging on that 40 feet of yellow rope, and Trevor's empty tube spins away behind us, and nobody grabs it. Nothing follows. Nothing comes out of those trees and into the water after us. We ride it out for a solid 10 minutes before anybody can talk, and by then my sister is not screaming anymore. She's making a small sound, over and over, with her hand over her mouth.
We have to go back for him.
You can't go back. That's what a river is. There is no going back, and there is no stopping, and there is no shoulder. And it took me until right that second to understand that we got on a conveyor belt this morning with a cooler and some sandwiches. I tell her that as gentle as I can, and she hits me in the chest with the flat of her hand once, and then she puts her forehead on the edge of my tube and stays there. Marcus fishes out the dry bag, 2 phones in it, his and Kayla's, both dead cold with no service, because there is no service on 11 miles of the Wanasa, and everybody knows that going in, and nobody's ever cared before.
Okay. Mile 7, maybe. Landing's at 11. That's an hour and a half.
And then what?
Then we get out, and we get to the truck, and we call the sheriff. And we tell them,
Tell them what, Marcus?
He doesn't finish it. I don't help him. What we saw doesn't have words that a dispatcher writes down, so we float. 3 of us, and 4 tubes and a cooler on a rope, down the middle of a brown river, under a blue sky, in silence for about a mile. And in that mile, I work out the rule, Trevor's tube. It went ahead of us for a while, empty, spinning slow, before it hung up in some brush and we passed it. Between the sandbar and there, it went by 3 of them. I saw them. A woman standing in the shallows. A kid up on a cut bank. Another one back in the brush I only caught the shape of. Not one of them reached for it. They had a bright yellow tube drift within 8 feet of their hands, and none of them so much as turned because it was in the current, because it was in moving water. I start watching the shore different after that. Not looking for what's on it, looking at where they put their feet. Every single one of them is standing exactly at the line. The woman in the shallows is ankle deep, at the seam where the still water along the bank stops and the current starts, with her toes in the slack and not 1 inch past it. The kid on the cut bank has his bare feet in a puddle of backwater the size of a dinner plate. Up ahead, there's an old man in a beige jacket, standing in a flooded stump hole with the water at his shins, dead still water, 3 feet from the river and completely separate from it. They stand in water all day long. They just won't stand in water that's going somewhere. I tell Marcus. I tell Kayla. My sister lifts her head off the tube and looks at the bank for a while, and then says the thing that saves our lives for the next hour.
The slow parts are the dangerous parts.
Right. Because a river isn't one speed. A river is fast in the narrows and dead slow in the wide bends. And on the inside of every bend, there's an eddy where the water goes backward and stalls out. And if you're not paying attention, that's exactly where a tube wants to go. Slack water is their water. So now we've got a job. And having a job is the only thing keeping my sister's head up. Marcus takes the front, I take the back. Kayla calls the water, because Kayla read the whole map and Kayla remembers it. And she starts calling out bends before we can see them. We fight for the middle for the next 4 miles. We paddle with our hands until my shoulders are cooked, and Marcus's bad knee is hanging over the side because he can't keep it bent that long. We take a riffle so shallow, it tears the bottom of Marcus's tube, and he has to belly onto the cooler tube with the sandwiches. We go through it all with both banks lined up, and it almost gets Marcus at mile 7. His tube's the one that tore out on the gravel, so it's riding low and soft, and it doesn't track worth a damn. And on a long left-hand bend, the current does what a current does on a bend, which is throw everything toward the outside, and then hand the leftovers to the eddy on the inside. He goes wide. 10 feet, then 20. 1 second he's off my shoulder, and the next he's crossed the seam into the slack. And slack water doesn't feel like anything at first. It just goes quiet. The tube quits bumping. He stops going downstream and starts going in a slow circle, 3 or 4 feet off a mud cut bank, spinning, with his bad leg hung over the side.
I'm out. Guys, I'm out of it. I'm not moving.
I go to swim for him, and Kayla gets my arm. She's right, and I hate her for it. 2 people in an eddy is 2 people in an eddy. There's exactly one thing on this river that touches both the fast water and the slow water. And my sister already has it in her hands because she's the one who tied it to a cooler at 8 this morning. She throws me the rope. I'm getting it coiled when the cut bank opens up. There's a mud shelf about a foot above the water line, undercut, with cottonwood roots hanging down over it like a curtain, and the roots part. It's an old woman in a church dress, navy blue with little white flowers on it, hose, the whole thing. She comes out onto that shelf, and she puts one shoe in the still water at the edge and stops there, and she is 9 feet from my sister's husband, and she is smiling at him with her whole face. Then her arm comes out over the water. It comes out too far. It keeps coming after the shoulder's done giving, the sleeve of that dress going tight and then going slack, and the hand at the end of it opens, and Marcus is spinning slow in an eddy with his back to her. I throw the rope. It's a bad throw, and it lands short, and he lunges out of the tube for it, all 300 and some pounds of a man who can't swim, going face first into water he'd told me that morning he had no business being in. I haul. Kayla hauls. The rope comes tight across my chest and burns a stripe into me that I've still got, and Marcus goes under and comes up with one hand on it and his eyes white all the way around, and we drag him across the seam like a hooked log. The current grabs him. That's the sweetest thing I've ever felt, that current grabbing him. The hand closes on nothing, about a foot behind his heel. Then the arm draws back in, slow, gathering itself up like a tape measure. And the old woman stands there on her mud shelf in her church dress, with her feet in still water, and watches us go. Marcus lays across the cooler tube with his cheek down on the lid, breathing like a bellows. He doesn't say anything for a mile. When he does, it's to Kayla. And all he says is that he's got the rope now, and he ties it around his own waist, and that is where it stays. Because at mile 8, they stop pretending. There's a stretch where the cottonwoods come right down to the water on both sides and make a corridor. And when we come into it, every one of them is already standing there. Dozens. Then 100. Then I quit counting. On both banks, back into the timber as far as the light goes, in rows, in the exact posture of people waiting for a parade. The Grill family, the man in the gray shirt, men in work jackets, women in swimsuits, an old lady in a church dress, kids, so many kids, a guy in a life vest with a whistle around his neck. Some of them are dry and some of them are dripping wet, and some of them are wearing swim trunks from a decade that ended before I was born. Some of them are wrong in ways I can see from the middle of a river, and some of them are wrong in ways I only feel. There's a man in a sheriff's uniform of a cut they haven't worn in this county since I was a boy. There's a woman holding a baby, and the baby's arm is over her shoulder, and it doesn't move either. Back in the shade, there are shapes that are taller than the people standing in front of them, and they don't have any clothes on them at all, and they're the color of the underside of a mushroom. Not one of them moves. Not one of them waves anymore. They just watch us come down the middle, and when we pass, every head turns in unison and follows.
Don't look at them. Eyes in the boat. Eyes in the boat, Shane.
Eyes in the boat. There's no boat. There's an inner tube I bought at a farm store for $11. We put our heads down and we paddle, and the corridor goes on for what has to be half a mile, and the only sound in the entire world is our hands in the water and Marcus breathing through his teeth. At the end of it, Kayla's phone finds one bar. She gets it out of the dry bag with her hands shaking so bad she drops it twice into her own lap. One bar, flickering. She dials 911 and puts it on speaker and holds it up over the water like an offering. It rings 4 times, and a woman picks up, and her voice is calm and clear and completely, perfectly normal. And I swear to you, every hair on my arms stands up before she gets 3 words out.
What's the address of your emergency?
We're on the river, the Wanasa. We're on the river, and our friend is... Somebody took our friend. There's people on the banks. There's something on the banks.
Ma'am, I have you. Stay in the water. Do not go ashore. Deputies are already at Miller's Landing.
Kayla starts crying. Marcus puts his face in his hands and makes a sound like he's been holding his breath since the sandbar. I'm the only one who hears it. Stay in the water. Do not go ashore. That woman knew. Before my sister described one thing, before anybody said a word about what happens on that bank, a voice on a telephone told 3 people in inner tubes to stay in the moving water. I don't say it out loud. I don't say it because my sister has her hand over her mouth and she's crying with relief for the first time in an hour, and I am not going to be the one who takes that away from her.
How long? How long until we get there?
You're closer than you think, sweetheart.
Then the bar drops and the call's gone. Marcus wants to call his mother. Kayla wants to call ours. There's no service left to argue about, so we just float, and Kayla holds that dead phone against her chest with both hands like it's a bird. Around mile 9, we see Trevor. He's up on the left bank, in a gap in the trees, standing in about 4 inches of backwater, in a slough behind a fallen cottonwood. He's got his shorts on. He's got the sunburn across his shoulders that he got this morning, and I watched happen. He's my friend from the shape of him down to the way he stands with his weight on one leg. The same way he stood at the bar at my dad's funeral. The same way he's stood next to me since we were both 9 years old. And when we come even with him, he raises his hand and waves. Kayla makes a sound I can't describe and starts paddling toward him. I get her by the wrist. Marcus gets her by the back of the tube. She fights us. She fights us hard. 32 years old and 130 pounds, and she nearly puts all 3 of us in the water. And Marcus is saying her name over and over, low, into the side of her head, while I hold my sister's arm and watch the thing wearing my friend keep waving. It never stops waving, not the whole time it takes to drift out of sight. The arm goes up and down, and up and down, and the shoulder underneath it doesn't move at all, like somebody behind him is working it.
That was him. That was him. That was his face.
I know.
You don't know. You didn't grow up with him.
We come around the last bend at mile 11, and there's Miller's Landing, and there are people on it. I mean real people, where every single thing my eyes know how to check says real. There's a sheriff's truck backed halfway down the gravel ramp with the light bar going, red and blue washing across the water. There's a deputy standing at the tailgate with his hand up over his eyes looking upriver. There's a county rescue guy in a life vest at the water's edge with a throw bag in his hand and the rope already flaked out on the gravel. There's an ambulance up in the lot with the back doors open. There's 2 more cars. There's a red minivan. There's my mother's red minivan. Kayla sees it a half second before I do. She sits straight up. She says, "Mom," just the one word. Quiet, in the voice of a much younger person. And out of the driver's side of that van comes a woman in a purple windbreaker with her white hair blown out sideways in the river wind. And she starts down the ramp with the fast little half run of a 68-year-old woman who has been told something terrible about her kids. And she is calling my sister's name.
Kayla Ann.
That is my mother's voice, coming across 200 feet of open water, with our mother's exact way of leaning on the second name. There's not one thing wrong with it. Nothing rings false. Nothing ever does, up until it does. Kayla starts paddling for the ramp. And I want to go too. I want to go. Every part of me from the belt down is already turning toward that gravel because there are lights and a uniform and a rope in a man's hand, and my mother is on that ramp calling my sister's name. But I've got a phone call in my head. Stay in the water. Do not go ashore. Deputies are already at Miller's Landing. She said that before we told her a single thing.
Kayla, stop. Stop paddling.
That's Mom.
How does Mom know? How does Mom know to be here, Kayla? Who called her?
The dispatcher called her. That's what they do.
We never gave that woman a single name. And my sister stops paddling. For about 4 seconds, she stops, right there in the current, 40 yards off the ramp. And she looks at me, and I watch her put it together. I watch it land. Her face goes through it, and I'm certain, right then, that I've got her. Then the deputy on the ramp takes his hand down from his eyes and hollers that they've got Trevor, that they found Trevor up the road, that he's in the ambulance, and he's asking for them. That's what does it. Not our mother, Trevor. Because my sister has spent the last 2 hours believing she watched a man die on a sandbar because she couldn't hold a tube against a current, and here is a man in a county uniform standing in daylight next to an ambulance telling her she's wrong. She goes,
Kayla, no, Kayla!
She's a strong swimmer. She was all conference in high school, and she never lost it. She's out of the tube and into the water in one motion, and she's across that 40 yards in about 15 seconds. And I'm going in after her. I'm already halfway out of my tube when Marcus gets a fist in the back of my shirt. Marcus is 300 and some pounds, and he doesn't let go. Let go of me. Let go of me right now.
She's my wife, Shane, and I'm not letting you go up there. Look at me. She's my wife.
He holds me in the current with one hand, and he watches her the whole way in. He doesn't blink once. Kayla stands up in the shallows at the bottom of the ramp. She's got her arms out already. Our mother meets her at the waterline and folds her up. My sister is standing on gravel, in the sun, in her mother's arms, and she looks back at us, over that purple shoulder, and there is nothing on her face but relief and a little bit of anger at me for being difficult. She lifts one hand off our mother's back and waves us in. Come on. Get out of the water. Come on. And the current takes us past the landing. We drift past the gravel ramp, with the lights turning on the water, and my sister waving us in, and Marcus's fist in the back of my shirt. And then there's brush, and then there's a bend, and then there's no more Miller's Landing. Nobody comes after us. No sheriff's truck on the frontage road. No shouting. The light bar just goes off. 2 miles. That's what's below the landing. 2 miles of river that almost nobody in this county has ever floated because there's no reason on God's earth to float it. And at the end of it, the Wanasa goes over Bergstrom Falls into a rock bowl 60 feet down. Marcus lets go of my shirt. Neither of us says anything for a while. There's a sound starting up under everything, so low you feel it in the tube before you hear it, and it isn't going away. The banks below the landing are empty. Completely empty. No people. Not one. After 9 miles of them lined up in the trees like a crowd at a homecoming parade, there's nobody at all, and it takes me a half mile to work out why, and when I do, it's worse than all of it. They don't need to be down here. Everything below the landing already belongs to them. Whatever they are, they set a trap 11 miles long, with one door in it, and everybody in the history of this river has walked through that door, and the only people who ever get to this stretch of water are people like us. And there's not enough of us to bother standing out in the sun for.
There's gotta be a takeout, a bridge, something.
There's nothing. It's state land, both sides, all the way down.
Then we swim it. We get to the bank and we walk out through the woods. I'm not going over a waterfall, Shane. I've got a bad knee and I can't swim, and I'm not going over a goddamn waterfall. We get out. We get out and we walk back up the road and we go get my wife.
And he's right. That's the thing. Everything he just said is the correct answer. The bank is 30 feet away. The woods are quiet. There's nobody standing in them. Below us, the sound is getting bigger. A low, steady roar coming up the valley like a semi you can't see yet. And every reasonable cell in my body agrees with the man. We start angling for shore. Both of us. I paddle for it, same as he does. We get about halfway there, and the trees open up. There's a run of cottonwoods along the left bank where the flood line has stripped the brush out. And in that open stretch, at about the height of a man's arms, they've got them in the trees. That's the only way I know how to put it. They're in the trees. Wired into them, grown into them, laid into the crotch of the limbs, and held there with something dark that goes around the ribs and around the trunk both. So the tree and the person are one object. 20 of them that I can count, maybe more, back in the shade. They're hollow. You can tell from the water. There's a woman in a swimsuit with a shape to her that isn't a shape a person has. Light does not go through on a living body. Their arms are up, all of them, every one, right hand up at shoulder height. And as we come even with the first tree, the arms start going, up and down, that easy, friendly river wave that you give a stranger on a Saturday. 20 dead arms going in the same slow rhythm, and not one shoulder moving with them, because behind every one of those trunks, there's something in the shadow that's working them. There's a guy in a life vest with a whistle. There's an old lady in a church dress. There's a kid, and I'm not going to say anything else about the kid. And there's a woman in a purple windbreaker. And there's my sister. 15 minutes. It's been 15 minutes since she walked up that gravel ramp into our mother's arms and turned around and waved us in. She's up in the fourth tree with her swimsuit still on and the elastic hair tie still on her wrist that she put there this morning in my driveway, and her arms going up and down, up and down. Her eyes are open. She's looking at the water. She's looking right at us. And she keeps waving and keeps waving and keeps waving. Marcus stops paddling for shore. He doesn't say anything. He just stops, mid-stroke, with his hand in the water, and he looks up at his wife in that tree, and he lets his arm go slack, and the river takes us back out toward the middle. Neither of us says one word about it. There isn't a decision to make anymore. That's what she did for us, at the end, without knowing she was doing it. My sister took the choice away and made it easy. The roar comes up the valley to meet us. The last half mile is fast. The river narrows into rock and starts to slope, and you can feel it in your back, that pull, that thing under the water that has decided. There's a mist standing up over the trees ahead of us like smoke off a fire. White water starts breaking on both sides, and the sound quits being a sound and turns into a pressure that goes through your chest. Marcus gets that 40 feet of yellow rope off the cooler. Our dad's rope off our dad's boat trailer, tied by my sister at 8 o'clock this morning at a bridge 11 miles behind us. He works Kayla's knot loose with his big hands, and he loops one end around my tube twice and knots it, and he takes the other end in his fist.
So you can find me after. Hey, Shane, when you come up, swim for the right side, where the rocks stop. Don't fight it out in the middle. It'll hold you under out there.
How do you know that?
I don't. Sounded good, though.
And that's the last thing my brother-in-law ever says to me, and I laughed. Out there, 300 yards above a 60-foot drop, with everything gone, the man got a laugh out of me. We come to the lip. It's the flattest, calmest water on the entire river, right at the very top. That's something nobody tells you. The last 40 feet before a waterfall is glass. All the noise is somewhere below, and the surface goes smooth and quiet and gray as a mirror, and you slide across it like you're being carried. Marcus reaches over and grabs my forearm with his free hand. Then the horizon line comes up out of nowhere, and there's no more river in front of us. We go over. There's no falling in it. That's the strangest part. It's more like the world tips and everything I've got comes up into my throat, and there's white all around me, and no up and no down, and the tube tears out from under my arms. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, I feel the rope go tight around my chest. Then I hit. The bottom of Bergstrom Falls is a churn. It grabs you and takes you down and rolls you along the rock, and it does not care what you want. And I'm in it for a long time. Long enough to stop thinking about anything at all, except the burning. Long enough to quit fighting. And the rope pulls. Twice. 2 hard yanks, off to my right, in the direction of the rocks. I go with it. That's all I did down there. Nothing. Not one thing of my own. I went where the rope pulled me, and it pulled me right, and it pulled me right again, and the water spit me out into slack current. In about 4 feet of stone-bottom shallows, and I got my knees under me, and stood up in the sunlight, coughing my lungs onto the rocks. I pull it in, hand over hand. 40 feet of yellow rope comes out of the Wanasa River and lays itself out on the gravel bar in wet loops, and I pull, and I pull, and I keep pulling, and it keeps coming. The end of it is frayed. It's not cut. Nothing sliced it. It's just wore through, the way a rope wears through when it's dragged across rock, with 300 and some pounds of a good man on the other end of it. I stand in the shallows below that falls for a long time. I yell for him until my voice quits.
Marcus!
I go along the whole pool, up one side and down the other, and out onto every rock I can reach. He's not there. They never did find him. It's about 1.5 miles through the state land to the county road, barefoot, with a rope over my shoulder because I couldn't make my hands drop it. Nothing in those woods touches me. I don't know why, and I've quit trying to know why. Maybe below the falls, you're already through the far side of it. Maybe you're not worth the trouble once you've paid. Maybe the whole apparatus of that river ends where the river ends. A man in a grain truck picks me up a little before dark and doesn't ask me one single question the whole way into town. The county found 2 tubes and a cooler in the pool below Bergstrom Falls. They found a pair of sunglasses on the sandbar at mile 6.5. Kayla and Marcus and Trevor are all listed as drowned. The sheriff's department has a theory involving alcohol and a group decision to run the falls, and their theory is written down in a file, and it will be the official version of my sister forever. My mother never got a phone call that day. She was at her kitchen table doing a crossword. Her red minivan was in her garage from noon until 9 at night, and the deputy, who was supposedly standing on that ramp, was 2 counties over at his daughter's volleyball tournament, and there is no record at the sheriff's office of a 911 call from the Wanasa River at any time on that Saturday. I've stopped bringing it up. That was 3 years ago. I still run the skid loader for the county. I still live in the same house. I go see my mother on Sundays, and we don't talk about it, and I've never once told her that the last thing her daughter ever did was walk into her arms. I don't go near the water. I don't even cross the bridge on the north side of town anymore. I take the long way around, 11 extra minutes, every day, and I do not care who thinks that's crazy. Last Thursday, I'm in my driveway after work, getting the mail out of the box, and it's that time of the evening when the sun's low and orange and coming down the street sideways. And a man 4 houses down is standing at the end of his driveway. I don't know him. He's new, or he's somebody's father, or he's nobody at all. He's just a man in a driveway in the light, and when he sees me looking, he raises his hand. So I raise mine. Because that's what you do. There's not a person alive who wouldn't. He's still doing it. He's been doing it for a while now. Up and down, that easy, friendly wave. And his shoulder isn't moving.
Please like and subscribe for more ear hole horror.